Now you have an
Yeah.
interesting comment about stonewalling. And I think and let's talk a little bit about different forms of stonewalling, which can really get in the way of collaborating, brainstorming, working as teams, working as
Oh my
colleagues.
God. Yeah. So stonewalling, I think for the younger members of the audience is kind of like ghosting, right? And so we use that term in negotiations, but basically it's just digging your heels in and just saying, oh, hell no. But you're not
Mhm.
actually telling them, oh, hell no. You're just behaving in an oh, hell no sort of way. And so it can be in the form of ghosting and not responding to emails or Slack messages, or in negotiations, always skirting and diverting around the conversation, never being able to actually reach an agreement. And when you're actually managing up, what I notice around stonewalling is a lot of managers may not have either the information or the authority to make a decision and give you the reasoning, but they're not going to tell you that. So then they just stonewall you by like kicking you off the calendar and kicking you 2 weeks off. And in my world, that's a really big deal when you've got a contract that needs to be executed and you need that stakeholder to sign off on it, and they're just not willing to do it, but they're not willing to communicate with you what and why they're not willing to do it. And so they just end up looking like a prick.
Yeah. And I want to note for the stonewalling, Jeanette, you're from the Midwest originally.
I am
And
from
one of the
Chicago.
things that we run into is either the Midwest nice and being very, very nice and very, very polite, or in the South, bless your heart,
Bless your heart.
or here in the Pacific Northwest, which we have a strong and nationwide reputation of being amazingly passive aggressive, which just means
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you, but I'm going to, this is how I define it. I may not tell you because maybe I
Yeah.
don't feel safe with you. But I am going to talk with people that I feel safe and comfortable with. So
And
we have
gossip.
different ways of avoiding. Yeah,
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, no, and when you're passive aggressive, you're gossiping because you'd rather go talk to the people you feel comfortable about why you're uncomfortable with whatever the situation is, but you then fake smile when the person that you have the disagreement with comes down the hallway. It's horrible. And that whole fake nice, oh my God, it's a tyranny with some people because they avoidant personality disorders, they can really like take it to the next level where everyone's like, oh, Sally Sue is such a nice person. But then you realize like Sally Sue can't get off her rock and do anything. Oh, but she's just so nice. So we never go to her and tell her everything she does is late, or everything's got mistakes in it, or I have to redo half of it because Sally Sue is so nice. And it's a tyranny. It drives me insane. And the Chicago part of me is just like, listen, I didn't vote 5 times for this. Like this is so Seattle, right? We had to vote 5 times to then unfund a monorail, which our town desperately needs public transportation. In Chicago, I'm like, I didn't vote for anything. I didn't vote for the orange line, but I sure as hell paid for it. So I don't understand this whole idea that we have to like dance around stuff. Like
Jeanette,
sometimes you
tell me
get
how
a
you
vote
really
and
feel about
sometimes you
it.
don't get
Tell
a
me how
vote.
you really feel about it.
Exactly.
So I think that's a great example of a couple of different things. One is that we do this stuff for a living. We talk about interests and issues, and we have frameworks, and we have tools, and we have language that we use, but it still gets under our skin. And I think kind of recognizing our own interests and issues and values and what annoys us and drives us crazy, um, I just want to put that out there. It doesn't mean that our worlds are conflict free. It just means
No.
that we have tools, and sometimes I have to pause and take a breath and say, okay, what do I want to have happen here? And I think
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was the folks over at Crucial Conversations add the thing in the long run. So we're
yeah,
taking
yeah.
kind of a broader approach, but sometimes it's like I've got a 12-year-old kid, and I will tell you, he will say with my husband, you don't always do what you teach. I'm like, well, maybe not. And I know how to recover it.
Oh,
And
oh yeah,
I've
yeah,
built up
but
trust
you're not
in
my
relationships.
equal, sweet 12-year-old, just like my 14 and a half year old's not my equal. And so, as one of our common friends says, this is a benevolent dictatorship. Be grateful it's benevolent
Yeah.
at home. And that's a really interesting point because that's something that mediation does that negotiation doesn't do. So, mediation puts people temporarily on a level playing field, employee and manager, and provides the framework for the conversation, but then the employee then goes back to being the employee, just the way my daughter will always be my daughter, your son will always be your son, right? So you can
Mhm.
sometimes have parity in conversations, but then we live in a hierarchical society right now. And so if I'm your manager, then I have greater visibility into issues, greater delegated authority, greater responsibilities, thinking for other people besides just you on the team, and that gets lost in mediation. But in negotiation and customer supplier relationships, I'm actually bringing the lesser party also up, and it could be the supplier or the customer depending on who I'm working with, to try to level that playing field. But in my work, I want them to stay there.
Mm.
I want them
It's
to be
interesting.
partners.